Love isn't something you hold on to tightly, but something you allow to fly. But some birds, once they fly too far, will never find their way back to the nest. I once believed in the power of love to transcend space, to transcend time. Now looking up at the star-filled night sky in a foreign country, I see only an empty space and the echo of a broken promise. Taking a deep breath, I ask myself, are you living every moment to the fullest? Are you cherishing what you have? Because some lessons you have to pay for with your entire life to truly learn. Let me tell you about my story, and Emily's about the cost of those long flights and a love that silently died. San Francisco in 2010. A city of winding hills, foggy afternoons blanketing the legendary Golden Gate Bridge, and artistic cafes tucked away in the colorful Haight-Ashbury district. That was the backdrop for my and Emily's love story. I am Daniel, an ambitious young architect, freshly graduated from the University of California, Berkeley, with a prestigious honors degree. Ever since I was a little boy, I had been fascinated by magnificent architectural lines, proud skyscrapers reaching for the sky bridges connecting distant shores. I always dreamed of one day having my name on iconic project structures that would change the urban landscape recorded in the annals of architectural history. Emily was a gentle girl with a radiant smile and expressive eyes, a high school literature teacher at a local school. Unlike me, Emily found beauty in ordinary things, in the small stories of life in verses and old books. She believed in the power of words and their ability to connect human souls through stories. She often said that the most valuable lessons weren't found in grand things, but hidden in every small detail of life. We met at an art exhibition at the San Francisco Museum of Modern Art. I was exhibiting the first drawings of a social housing project I envisioned, a bold idea combining green architecture with community spaces aiming to provide a better living environment for low-income individuals. And she was engrossed in admiring colorful abstract paintings, her blue eyes sparkling like stars. I was captivated by the way she smiled when looking at a piece, by the sophistication and depth in her gaze, and by the way she spoke about art with pure passion. Love came gently like a California summer sea breeze, serene yet intense. Our dates often took place on Baker Beach, where we watched the sunset over the Golden Gate Bridge, the last rays of sunlight painting the entire sky red, illuminating Emily's shiny hair with gold. Or we would wander for hours in the Japanese tea garden in Golden Gate Park, lost on quiet paths, sharing our deepest thoughts, our hidden fears, and even our wildest dreams. We talked about dreams, ambitions, favorite books, about the homes we wanted to build. I wanted to build grand buildings, structures that would mark an era. Emily wanted to build a small home filled with love, where children's laughter and the smell of baked goods filled the air every weekend. She always listened intently as I passionately spoke about architectural projects, technical challenges, new materials, and the future of global architecture. And I listened to her talk about her students, about the literary stories she taught, about the small things that made life meaningful. We complemented each other perfectly, like two pieces of a perfect puzzle, each of us the missing part of the other. Emily was always my biggest supporter, believing in my talent and my crazy dreams. "You'll be the best architect in America. Daniel, I believe in you," she often said, her eyes sparkling with pride, and I felt like I could conquer the world, that no obstacle was insurmountable with her by my side. And I just wanted to build a fulfilling life, a peaceful home for both of us, where I could return after stressful working hours and find peace, where I could be myself. Not Daniel the great architect, but just Emily's Daniel. We married after 3 years of dating, a simple but cozy wedding at a small church in Sonoma, amidst lush green vineyards and golden sunlight. Only family and closest friends were present. Under the golden sunlight, we exchanged vows to be together forever, no matter what life's storms brought, no matter how harsh the ups and downs ahead. I still vividly remember our first kiss after we officially became husband and wife. It was surprisingly sweet and sacred, like an eternal promise etched into our souls. I believed that nothing could separate us, that our love was strong enough to overcome any challenge. I believed that I had found a safe haven for my life. Our married life in San Francisco passed peacefully, happily. I dedicated all my efforts to my work, diligently working on designs for a local architectural firm, projects that were small but meaningful. Emily remained a devoted teacher, and we had evenings gathered around the dinner table, telling each other stories about our day, sharing joys and sorrows, life's worries. We planned for the future, for buying a small apartment in the suburbs near the beach, where we could watch the sunrise together and build sandcastles for the children whose laughter would fill our home. We even started researching preschool's names for our future children. Everything seemed to be going in the right direction, a perfect picture of simple happiness, where I could balance my passion and my home life, where I could be both an ambitious architect and a loving, complete husband. But then the door to an unexpected opportunity opened, an opportunity I couldn't possibly pass up, a call from the future I had long awaited. The world's leading architectural firm, Helix Innovations, a renowned corporation based in New York, offered me a job. This wasn't just an opportunity, it was every architect's dream. A chance for me to reach an international level, to learn the most advanced technologies in design and construction, to work on the iconic projects I had always dreamed of, multi-million-dollar structures, skyscrapers that would transform the face of major cities. This was where legendary architects had laid the foundation for their careers, where the biggest names in the architectural industry had made history. I stood at a crossroads. On one side was a brilliant career awaiting me in a new horizon. On the other was a peaceful life with Emily and our established plans in California. My heart felt torn. One side pulled by the call of fame, the other by the call of love and home. I knew Emily loved California, loved her simple life close to her family and friends, with leisurely strolls under the golden sun. Leaving all that for a strange city, a completely new and harsh place like New York, would not be easy for her. I envisioned the difficulties she would face, being far from family, far from friends, finding a new job in a competitive city, and adapting to a completely different, non-stop pace of life in the city that never sleeps. I shared it with Emily late one evening as we sat on the balcony of our small apartment, looking out at the city lights twinkling like stars on the ground. I explained the importance of this opportunity, what I could learn, how I could become a world-class architect. I talked about the big projects, the iconic architectural works, the chance to work with the greatest minds in the industry. I saw Emily's eyes sparkle as she heard me talk about the massive projects in New York, about the skyscrapers I had always dreamed of designing, though deep down I sensed a fleeting sadness and underlying worry in her eyes like a covering mist. She knew this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, a major turning point in my career, and she didn't want me to miss it. "You should go, Daniel," Emily said, her voice gentle but firm, holding my hand tightly. "This is your dream. I'll wait for you at home. We can overcome any distance, right?" She tried to smile. That smile reassured me, but contained too much sacrifice, an acceptance I was too oblivious to recognize. "I'll keep teaching you, just focus on your career. I'll be your solid foundation, always here waiting for you to come back." I saw the resilience in her eyes, and I believed I could do it. My heart warmed. Emily's words seemed to give me strength, dispelling my initial worries. I promised her that I would quickly settle in, would send money back so she could join me in New York in a few months, once I had found a spacious enough apartment and could secure a good life for both of us. I promised to call every day, to video call whenever possible, to fly back to California once a month, never to let distance fade our love. "It's only temporary, my love. Then we'll be together again, I promise," I whispered to her, believing it was true, believing our love was strong enough to overcome any challenge, that my promises would be kept. Emily smiled. Her smile was radiant, but I didn't know that deep in her eyes was worry, a silent sacrifice. She never voiced a seed of distance sown in that very moment, a first crack no one noticed. The day I boarded the plane, Emily saw me off at San Francisco International Airport. She hugged me tightly, tears streaming down her cheeks, soaking my shoulder. "Take care, okay? I'll wait for you." Her voice choked her last words like a prophecy for an uncertain future, a warning I couldn't comprehend. I kissed her forehead, vowing never to forget my promise that I would return and we would be together again. I believed it was just a temporary separation, a small test our love would easily overcome. I was wrong, a mistake I would pay for with my entire life, with my own happiness. The first few days in New York were a continuous series of challenges and overwhelm. Work at Helix Innovations was not just busy, but incredibly demanding. I had to work 14 to 16 hours a day, sometimes pulling all-nighters to meet deadlines for colossal multi-billion-dollar projects. The pressure from large projects, the fierce competition in a new environment where talented young architects from all over the world flocked, and the culture shock from the simple life in San Francisco to the hectic non-stop pace of the city that never sleeps, left me reeling, with almost no time to breathe, to think about anything else but work. I called Emily every day, just as I had promised. Initially, our calls lasted for hours. We told each other everything from the grandest things to the smallest details of our day. Emily was still enthusiastic, talking about her students, about class field trips, about funny neighborhood stories and new books she was reading. I passionately talked about new projects, talented colleagues, fresh knowledge I was acquiring, and meetings with top experts in the industry. We tried to stay connected, tried to bridge the distance with endless conversations with deep questions, but gradually those calls became shorter and less frequent. The time difference between the East and West Coasts, 3 hours, and I was constantly busy with meetings or working late when Emily was free. My phone continuously buzzed with work messages, emails, and urgent calls from my boss. My stories began to revolve around work, new projects, numbers, meetings with major investors, million-dollar contracts. I talked about opportunities, about career advancements, about how I was getting closer to the top. I didn't realize that Emily no longer truly understood the technical jargon or the pressures I was facing. As for Emily, she still talked about school life, about small family issues or coffee dates with friends. Our worlds gradually became different and our stories no longer naturally intersected as before. We talked, but we no longer truly connected, no longer found harmony in our souls. I still remember the times Emily called late at night, her voice full of anticipation mixed with a hint of vulnerability. "Do you remember the California salad I make, Daniel? When are you coming back? I miss you so much." Or, "Do you remember your birthday? I've prepared a gift for you. Come back and get it." I often answered hastily, mixed with tiredness and a touch of irritation. "I'm too busy, Emily. Work is overwhelming. You know how much pressure I'm under. I'm doing all this for our future. I'll come back another time, surely soon." These promises just drifted away and my trips back to California became less frequent, then stopped altogether. Plane tickets were expensive, work wouldn't allow it, and I told myself I had to try harder, be more successful to give Emily a good life so she wouldn't have to worry about anything, so she could be proud of me. I deceived myself into believing that the current sacrifice would bring greater happiness in the future, a future I had drawn up without her participation. Emily still sent me photos of San Francisco, of our old house, of familiar streets, of sunsets over the Golden Gate Bridge. I still looked at those photos, but they gradually became unfamiliar, like a distant memory that no longer belonged to me, no longer touched my emotions. Life in New York had swept me away with magnificent skyscrapers, lavish parties with partners, fleeting social connections, meetings with the elite. I found excitement in new encounters, in professional challenges, in the praise from colleagues and superiors. I told myself I was building a future for both of us. But I forgot that that future needed both of us in the present, needed to be nurtured by the smallest things every day, by words of encouragement, hugs, moments together, by the presence of a partner. Arguments began to appear not with raised voices, but with silence and clipped cold messages. "You seem to have forgotten about me," Emily texted. "You only think about work." I often replied with tiredness and a hint of irritation, "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. I'm doing all this for our future, for the life we once dreamed of. Don't be so selfish." Every word spoken instead of mending pushed us further apart, creating a deep, unfillable chasm, a gulf we couldn't bridge. Gradually, calls became fewer, messages became only polite inquiries, dry notifications. We no longer shared our fears, our small joys, our hidden dreams. I was too busy to notice the change in Emily's voice, the emptiness in her goodnight wishes. She no longer told me about her feelings, only gave life updates, superficial answers for appearances. I, meanwhile, was immersed in the intoxication of success, deluding myself into thinking I was doing everything best for us. I missed the signals, her silent cries for help, the tears she shed in silence. I was too confident in our love, too arrogant to think it would simply exist without nurturing, without my presence. One time I remember calling Emily late one evening after an exhausting day at work. I wanted to hear her voice, to find some peace, but when she picked up, her voice was strangely cold and distant, like a stranger's. "Daniel, is there something you need? I'm busy." I was stunned. "Busy with what, honey? I just wanted to talk." She sighed, a tired and frustrated sigh. "I'm grading papers and I'm tired. Can you call back later?" I hung up, my heart heavy. I didn't know that was one of the last times we spoke normally, one of the last calls before our connection completely severed. The connection between us had become too fragile, waiting for just a gentle touch to break into pieces beyond salvation. 1 year passed, then 2 years, then 3. I became a talented architect with many resounding successful projects. My name was mentioned in the industry, my designs praised in prestigious architectural magazines like Architectural Digest and Metropolis. I even received a prestigious international design award. Money was no longer an issue. I lived in a luxurious apartment in the heart of Manhattan with sweeping city views, looking down at bustling streets and never-ending lights. But every night I returned, emptiness surrounded me. I realized that these successes meant nothing without Emily by my side to share them, to enjoy them together. Lavish parties, empty praises could not fill the void in my soul. I had everything but felt lonelier than ever. I called Emily, but she picked up less and less. My messages often received short, cold replies. She no longer told me stories about her day, no longer shared joys or sorrows. I felt something changing, a terrifying coldness, like an iceberg in the ocean, slowly freezing my heart. I began to panic, a growing fear, as I realized I was losing the most precious thing in my life, something I had traded everything for. "Emily." I texted, my voice filled with anxiety, mixed with a touch of despair. "I'll be back in California next month. We need to talk seriously." I miss you. I miss our life. I miss you so much. My message sank into silence. 2 days later, as I sat in my office trying to focus on drawings, but my mind drifting towards her, I received a call from Emily. Her voice was calm but unusually distant like a stranger's. Daniel, I don't think we should meet right now. My heart seemed to stop. Pain spread through my chest. Why? What's wrong, Emily? I'm coming back soon. I'll make everything up to you. I'll stay in California, I'll find a job there, we'll be like before. I vowed, promised, the words pouring out unconsciously as a last attempt to hold on to something slipping away, a final fragile thread. But Emily was silent for a moment, then her voice broke, mixed with choked sobs, yet still maintaining a heartbreaking resolve. Daniel, I filed for divorce. I submitted it to the court last week. I can't continue anymore. I can't pretend anymore. I was stunned. My hands trembled. The phone almost fell from my grip. No way, you're kidding, right, Emily? You can't do this to me. Why didn't you say anything to me? Why did you decide everything on your own like that? Do you know how hard I've tried? I yelled, a feeling of helplessness and anger surging along with a terrible fear consuming me. I'm sorry, she said, choking back sobs. I called, I texted, I waited for you so many times, Daniel. Do you know how many nights I stayed awake looking at my phone waiting for your call? A real inquiry? Do you know how lonely I was having to face everything alone? From the smallest financial accounting to major life decisions? I had to fix the leaky faucet myself, take the car for maintenance myself, go to the doctor myself when I had a fever. I can't live in a relationship with only sparse calls and messages, promises that never materialize, empty words. I need someone by my side, someone to build life with me every day, to overcome the smallest difficulties with me, to share simple joys with me, to eat a warm dinner with me, not a distant shadow, someone who only exists through a phone screen. I tried so hard, Daniel. I tried to believe your promises, tried to fill the void with work, with friends, with my own activities, but I couldn't. I'm tired. I can't keep living in this hopeless waiting anymore. I need to find myself again, find my life again, find the happiness I deserve. The most painful twist wasn't that Emily had found someone else, but that Emily no longer needed me. She didn't betray me, made no mistakes. The mistake was mine, in my endless flights, in my indifference and selfishness that buried our love under the weight of distance, under the dust of empty promises. She couldn't wait any longer, and I lost her even when she was still my wife, even when I still deluded myself that she would always be there waiting like a living statue. I tried to say more, to beg, but she hung up. The cold beep beep echoed in my ear like a final verdict. New York suddenly became suffocating, the skyscrapers transforming into prisons holding my loneliness. I had everything I ever dreamed of, but lost the most important thing, something I had traded my youth and love for. 3 months later, I returned to California, not as a brilliantly successful architect returning home, but as a failure searching for myself, a lost soul. The divorce papers were signed, an end to the marriage I once thought was eternal. All procedures happened quickly. Emily didn't even appear, everything was handled through lawyers, as if I didn't exist. Her absence was a final confirmation of the end, a definitive, unhealable cut. I went to the small apartment we once dreamed of, filled with so many memories. The door was closed, and a neighbor said Emily had moved to another city in the state, where she found a new job and a new life completely separate from me. I went to her school, asked mutual friends. Everyone said Emily was doing very well. She was still a devoted teacher, and she had found peace in her life. No one said she had found someone new, but everyone implicitly understood that Emily no longer needed me, that she had found happiness without me, and I was the only one to blame for that. I drove to the Golden Gate Bridge, standing silently under the familiar sunset, the place we used to date, where I once promised to love Emily forever. Now everything remained the same. The sea breeze still blew, the waves still crashed against the shore, only I had changed, had lost everything. The material success I had pursued suddenly became meaningless. Like a sandcastle, I had lost everything to build, but had no one to share it with, no one to show off to, leaving only myself in utter loneliness. I had everything but lost the most important thing, Emily's love, the peace and simple happiness I once had. I believed that love could overcome any distance, but I forgot that love needs nurturing, needs presence, needs daily care. Geographical distance didn't kill love. It was my indifference, my misplaced priorities that killed it. I was too complacent, too careless, too convinced that success would automatically bring happiness without realizing that true happiness lies in connection and sharing. Regret gnawed at me every day, every hour. I gave up a true love to pursue a glamorous dream, only to realize that dream was hollow without her. I thought I could return any time, that she would wait forever like a living statue, but I was wrong. Time waits for no one, and cracks in a relationship once large enough can never be mended. I personally destroyed the most precious thing I ever had, personally tore down my entire world. In the first few months after the divorce, I lived in a state of near-deep depression. I refused to see friends, neglected work, and often drank alone in my empty apartment, trying to find oblivion in intoxication. Memories of Emily of our happy days haunted me like a slow-motion film playing non-stop. I remembered her scent, her laughter, the way she held my hand whenever I was worried. I remembered the meals she cooked, the books she read to me, the mornings we brewed coffee and read the newspaper together, the evenings we sat on the balcony and simply just existed together. All those small things now became knives cutting into my heart, reminding me of what was lost. I realized I had missed too much, lost too much, and the pain seemed endless. Fortunately, I had an old friend, David, who studied architecture with me at Berkeley. He was a true friend, non-judgmental, just quietly listening to my complaints, my tears. David was a calm man, always finding meaning in the simple things of life, a philosophy I once had but had lost. He pulled me out of the swamp of despair, not with empty advice, but with his presence and genuine encouragement. "Daniel," David said on a rainy afternoon when I was drowning in alcohol, "you can't keep living in the past. Emily has moved on, and you need to too. Not to forget her, but to become a better version of yourself, someone she can be proud of even if she's not by your side. Do it for yourself, for your future." David's words were a glimmer of light in the darkness. I started therapy, learning to face my pain and regret directly. I realized that to atone for Emily, I first had to atone for myself. Had to find the person I had lost in the race for fame, a person who knew how to love and appreciate. After the shock of the divorce, it took me a long time to rebalance my life. I left New York, abandoning the position many dreamed of, and returned to California. I no longer lived in the lavish apartment. I rented a smaller apartment in a San Francisco suburb near the areas Emily used to love, where there were lush green parks and weekend farmers markets. I delegated most of my work to subordinates, keeping only a few important projects to maintain, and spent more time on myself, on activities I had long neglected. I began to dedicate time to myself and to the things I had overlooked. I volunteered for charity courses, helping the homeless in San Francisco, people Emily cared about and wanted to photograph their lives. I spent hours listening to their stories, their unfortunate lives, and I realized that life holds much more meaning than money and fame, that sharing and compassion are what truly matter. I started learning to play the guitar, an instrument Emily used to love hearing me play. I read the books she had recommended, went to the small coffee shops where we used to have dates, trying to relive our happy moments and feel the emotions I once had. I did all these things not to try to get Emily back immediately, but to find myself again, to better understand the values I had once ignored, to become a better person for myself. I also began to participate in educational support activities, especially literature and art projects in underprivileged schools. I wanted to use my influence and finances to help people in similar situations to Emily, people whose passions might be forgotten due to life's burdens. I organized architectural workshops for high school students, encouraging them to pursue their passions, whatever they might be, and showing them that success isn't just about money. I did these things quietly, without fanfare, hoping that one day my actions might reach her as a sincere atonement, an apology that didn't need to be spoken. I believed that true change would be recognized. I still frequently heard news about Emily through mutual friends. I knew she was living a peaceful, happy life and had found a stable job at a new school in Santa Cruz, a peaceful coastal city a few hours' drive from San Francisco. She was still a dedicated teacher, and her smile was as radiant as ever, even more so. I knew that it was partly thanks to her being freed from a relationship that no longer made her happy, from the burden of waiting. 3 months later, I unexpectedly met Emily again. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was strolling through the farmer's market in Santa Cruz, a new habit of mine. I was choosing fresh vegetables when I suddenly saw her standing at a flower stall admiring hydrangeas. She was still as beautiful as ever, but there was a peaceful, serene aura about her that I had never seen before. I froze, my heart pounding. Emily turned, her eyes met mine. A fleeting surprise, then a gentle smile formed on her lips. "Daniel," her voice was still warm but distant. "Emily," I uttered, my voice choked. You're doing well." "I'm fine. How about you?" I am too." Silence settled between us. Not a tense silence, but one filled with too many unspoken things. "Are you living in Santa Cruz?" "Yes," she said, her eyes gazing out at the distant ocean. "I found a new job here. Life is more peaceful here." I wanted to say so much, to apologize, to explain, to hold on, but I knew this wasn't the time. Emily had found her peace, and I didn't want to break it. I saw you at the art exhibition last week, I said, my voice fading. The photos were beautiful. You're truly talented. Emily turned to look at me, her eyes suddenly flickering with a hint of bewilderment. Thank you. You still care about those things? I've always cared about you, Emily, I said honestly. I know I made a lot of mistakes. I've learned my lesson. She looked at me for a long time, her gaze searching as if seeking something in my eyes. Change is a long process, Daniel. I hope you've truly found what you needed. Are you happy, Emily? I asked, my voice trembling. She smiled a radiant, peaceful smile. I'm happy, Daniel. I found my peace, and I hope you do too. In that moment, I suddenly understood a secret I had stubbornly refused to recognize for so long. Emily's happiness no longer depended on me. She had found it herself, built it herself with her own strength after I had let her go. I realized that her greatest sacrifice wasn't staying and waiting for me, but letting go of me to find herself. I no longer sought the glamour of New York, no longer chased after fleeting fame. I sought peace within my soul and hoped that one day that peace would be great enough for Emily to see me again, not as the mistaken ex-husband, but as a changed man, a man worthy of her love and sacrifice. I know that might never happen, but I will still try. It's the only way I can live with my regret and find solace for myself. I learned that happiness isn't a destination but a journey, and my journey now is to find myself again and perhaps one day find some part of Emily again, even if only in beautiful memories, even if only a friendly smile from afar. Although the door of love had closed, the door of understanding and growth had opened for me. And that is the story of Daniel and Emily, a painful reminder of the destructive power of geographical distance and the cost of silent sacrifice. Sometimes in the race to conquer grand dreams, we inadvertently overlook small values, the people who quietly stood behind us supporting us. And when they leave, the void they leave behind is irreparable, because we have lost an important part of ourselves. What do you think of this story? Can Daniel truly find his happiness after everything, even without Emily by his side? Do all long-distance relationships inevitably face such a tragic end? Or is there a way to keep the flame of love alive when geographical distance becomes an invisible wall, when life changes people into strangers? Leave your comments below and share your thoughts on this story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next compelling stories. Thank you for listening.